My name is Devorah Kelly, and I'll be leading today's service, and Reverend Matt Alspaugh will be presenting our message this morning. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we are participating, we're actually organizing a celebration of light, love, and peace this coming Saturday at 4:30 on the Carretera, right by the sculpture. And bring your candles, bring signs, but most of all, bring yourselves, because we want to spread the light, the love, and the peace in this area and throughout anybody who's on Zoom with us. So that's December 3rd. And there will be a work party on Wednesday afternoon, 3 to 5 to make signs here if you want to do that. But you can also bring a sign from home. So I just want to make sure everybody knows about that. One other announcement, please put your phones on mute or airplane mode during the service. We have enough interruptions without phones. Okay. So our opening words this morning are by William Arthur Ward. Adapt yourself to change as the willow tree adapts to the weather. When the harsh winds of circumstance sweep across the landscape of your life, bow gracefully, bend gently, adapt graciously. You are wise to study well the ways of the willow. In the face of change, in the throes of adversity, in the midst of conflict and crisis, the willow willingly bends its branches, but refuses to release its roots. May we, like willows, bending but not releasing, spend this time together this morning. And so I just want to welcome you with live from Fellowship Hall. It's our LCUUF Sunday service, right? No. Thank you, Michael.
Sorry, did I jump the gun?
That's okay. That's okay. We're going to skip over the announcements because I think you guys know the routine. It's up there and it's in the email. So what we're going to go to is welcoming our visitors. So we have a special welcome to anyone visiting us today. If you are visiting with us for the first time or have returned and reconnected with us after a long absence, we invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. If you're on Zoom, use the Zoom raised hand feature and we'll ask you to unmute. If you're in the room, just raise your hand and we'll start with the people in the room. Do we have any visitors today?
Good morning. My name is Andrew. I'm from Ohio in the United States, and I'm very happy to be here this morning. Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome. Matt?
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Woo, I'm very excited to be here. My name is Gloria Rathwell. This is my beloved Mark Etkin. And we just recently bought a house in Ahihic, and this is the first season that we're going to spend 5 months here. We've been here 4 other times. And we're both from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Welcome. Welcome. Else? Okay, let's switch to those on Zoom. Anybody new on Zoom?
No Zoom visitors.
Okay. Well, we have a full house here, Richard. Okay. Hang on. Okay. Oh, we're not there yet. Okay, so our chalice lighting words today are by Eric Walker Wingstrom. You're going to light the chalice? Sorry. All right, we're trying to coordinate here. Okay, here today in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice we light our way. Let us light our chalice with these words that we sing together.
We kindle this night in celebration for the life that we share.
So there are many ways. It's coming. It's coming. We didn't do Joyce. Can we take a moment and thank the tech team, because you can tell they have a really important and difficult job. So thank you, tech people. Tranquila. Okay. So there are many ways to be of service to LCUUF, including the tech team. We have our time, we have our treasure, and we have our talents. They're all necessary components to a healthy fellowship. Now is the time in our service when we ask you to share the gifts of treasure through pledging and donations. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on the slide during the announcements before the service every week. For people here at the fellowship, we will pass the basket. If you're new here today and or struggling, please let the basket pass you by. Your presence here is a gift to us. And while you're considering your gifts to the fellowship, remember that each month LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization in our Lakeside community. We share 1/2 of the offering collected at the fellowship each week with that organization. And you can see on the slide that we are supporting Operation Feed for the month of November. So this is the last Sunday for that. For over 30 years, Operation Feed volunteers have been providing food and improving the lives of the very poor and the marginalized people of the village of San Juan Cosala. They provide weekly food dispenses to 150 families and individuals who would otherwise go hungry. Operation Feed supports new program initiatives like cooking classes and crochet projects to involve the people in developing additional income sources and skills. So the offering has now been gratefully received. And our opening hymn is number 359, When We Are Gathered. Please stand as you're willing and able and join me in singing.
When we are gathered for a time of worship and of song, let none forget the joys and griefs that mark each path of life, and thus we reach for those who love. We reach for those who love. For you shall pass, and time is wise, and countless seasons turn. So day by day our years increase, until at last by life released our spirits shine like stars. Our spirits shine like stars.
Okay, now we're going to do joys and sorrows. Each week. Huh? What? Kate is very happy. She has a joy. Can you, those of you that are visiting or haven't been here for a while, can you tell how much fun we have here? Yes, by the way, Matt will be mentioning it, but December 5th, mark your calendar, 2:00. Each week, we take time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. The sharing of joys, sorrows, and milestones is one way that we practice holding one another in community. We speak what is in our hearts, sharing our significant joys or sorrows in our lives, because there's power in the sharing. We'll start with the folks in the room to give those on Zoom a chance to type their joys or sorrows into the chat to be read out loud by the Zoom host. First, let's recall the joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others. Are there any joys that people would like to share here in the room? Raise your hand and Matt will bring you the mic. Good.
Okay. All right. Good morning. My name is Andrew Frowine. As I said, I'm very happy to be here this morning. And this morning, I'm thankful for the tide that I feel turning back in my country, in the US, turning away from divisiveness and anger towards a more loving, kind place. And I know it's got a long way to go, but I feel signs. I also want to say hello and make a statement about to my wife, Laura, how much joy she's brought into my life and how grateful I am for that, for my 5 children, 8 grandchildren, with 1 on the way. My life is bountiful, and I'm so happy to be here this morning. And I'm also happy to have this place to come to, and for Reverend Matt, who gives such great, inspiring messages. So thank you.
I'd like to speak for the animals, and I have a joy because Prince Charles, who I think is going to be king soon, has banned foie gras, which is force feeding geese, and then people are eating it. So that's a joy.
Let's see, back here, David.
I am David, and I feel good, as in happy, joyous, and free, and I'm thankful for that.
Okay. The timing is good. Oh, Fred.
Fred Harlan. I'm absolutely delighted that Mark and Gloria are here, and we expect to see them a lot more.
Okay. Go ahead and get the Zoom ones while
Do we have any joys on Zoom?
Yes, from Len Cleet. My joy is that 3 out of 4 of our kids got to spend the holidays together. That doesn't happen often. Our Colorado daughter flew into Oklahoma and surprised the other 2.
Nice.
And from Colleen Berry, I have the great joy to be able to spend quality time with family in California and now in Texas. I am blessed with a loving, close-knit family that I actually enjoy spending time with. That's it.
Okay.
You want to squeeze another one in there?
Yeah, I sent something to Richard yesterday, but it didn't get on. So I'm Dee Dee, and I'm very joyful that my son Eric is here. He will be here for until the end of May, and he brought with us an adorable little puppy whose name is Coco Loco. And he's 10 weeks old, and he's peeing and pooping all over the house, but he's cute.
Now let's, excuse me, now let's voice our sorrows or concerns. That sounded like a little bit of a concern, Dee Dee. Okay, that's the joy. Okay, whatever you or the world may be holding that's in need of our healing and caring thoughts. Those on Zoom are welcome to type sorrows and concerns into the chat box if you have not already. And again, we'll start with the folks here in the room. Any sorrows or concerns?
As many of you may have lost friends to AIDS, December 1st is World AIDS Day. LCS is having its usual program, which is excellent if anybody wants to go for that. But just a memory to everyone. I mean, it was a huge issue, and so many people have survived it, and thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Phyllis. There's no let up with the Ukraine problem with Russia, and that's really a concern. I really thought the last few days that things were about a week ago, things were going to be slowed down and Putin would stop, but that's obviously not happening. And that's really a huge concern, even for the United Nations who have gotten together. So let's see what happens next.
I know many people have had friends or family who have struggled with cancer. And my brother, Peter Dolphin, he's struggling with cancer now, as well as my friend, Bob Bell, who I've known for over 50 years. He just had brain surgery to remove a tumor. So he's trying to recover. I remember both of them and then all the many who are dear to us.
Good morning. My name's Andrew Still, and I have a sorrow and for all of the gun violence that's happened in the United States. And I'm hoping that sanity will prevail.
Good luck.
Concern for my sister Jane. I have quite a few siblings. She happens to be the one I'm closest to back in Michigan. And she's going through a health challenge, which is quite serious. So prayers for my sister Jane.
Hi, my name is Mark. Still from Canada, I guess I'd say. We've been members and helped start a secular humanist Jewish organization in Canada about 25 years ago. And one of our really fabulous mentors, and a woman who's in her 90s, passed away about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, Roz. And Roz was kind of a bright light for us in our work in progressive Jewish politics. And she was also a mentor for Gloria and me personally because of her inviting nature and generosity. So yeah, so we're both very sad about Roz's passing.
There any sorrow? Wow. Any sorrows to be shared on Zoom?
Yes, from John DeWall. Diane and John said goodbye to Diane's cat of 20 years. And from Kathy Coaches, Kathy's concern is that her son Brian and his girlfriend both have COVID. And from Tom McClure, concerns for those people in Ukraine who are facing a severe winter without water, heat, and electricity. And that's it.
And this excuse me. This candle from our care team represents those sorrows that are too raw, too difficult, maybe for us to share aloud. So many of us have had losses, partners, children, grandchildren, pets, losses that remain present with us every day. So many of us have burdens, anger, fear, and frustration, all those things that weigh heavy on our hearts. We light this candle for those unspoken sorrows. And let us now share a moment of silence to hold in our hearts both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared this morning.
So we have a responsive reading, When I Change, by Ma Teresa Tet Gustillo Gallardo. This is really more like a litany. So when I read a line, you will answer with the line that will be on the screen here momentarily, which is simply, when I change, the world changes. And so we are here to derive meaning from our actions.
When I change, the world changes.
We are here to win our power back over our areas of powerlessness.
When I change, the world changes.
We are here to deepen our understanding of ourselves in order to strengthen self-discipline.
When I change, the world changes.
We are here to abolish prejudice with an appreciation for our diversity and differences.
When I change, the world changes.
We are here to feel our personal power and our capacity to affect the lives of other people.
When I change, the world changes.
We are here to become teachers to each other.
When I change, the world changes.
We are here to spend time away from the usual influences, those influences, I'm sorry, I'm ad-libbing, and relearn reality.
When I change, the world changes.
When God gives me the desire, I also am given the power and the means to achieve my goals.
When I change, the world changes.
I am here to see that my singular life is a gateway to countless possibilities.
When I change, the world changes.
We have a reading whose author is unknown and which we've excerpted. Change can enter our lives silently, and this change can be just as important as change that we have worked hard for. As humans, sometimes we have relatively short attention spans and we can easily lose track of time. We may worry about a seedling in a pot, giving it our constant attention and watering for several weeks, only to find ourselves enjoying the blooms it offers and wondering, when did that happen? And how did we not notice it? Nature, on the other hand, has infinite patience and stays with a thing all the way through its life. This doesn't mean that our efforts play no part in the miracle of change. They do. It's just that they are only one small part of the picture that finally results in the flowering of a plant, the shifting of a relationship, the softening of our hearts. The same laws that govern the growth of plants oversee our own internal and external changes. We observe, consider, work, and wonder, tilling the soils of our lives, planting seeds and tending them. Sometimes the hard part is knowing when to stop and let go, handing it over to the universe. Usually this happens by way of a distraction or a disruption, our attention being called away to other more pressing concerns. And it's often at these times when we are not looking in the silence of nature's embrace that the miracle of change happens.
So our meditation today starts with a quote by the blogger Terry Guillemette. And the quote is, "If we gaze at the clouds and then close our eyes for a few minutes and then reopen them and the clouds are different, we don't freak out about it. So why do we worry when things shift and change in our lives? New day, new sky, every moment too." And so I invite you to close your eyes and perhaps in your mind's eye, visualize clouds in a blue, blue sky. You know, those kind of puffy clouds that float along, the kind you look for animal shapes and other shapes in. And just visualize those in your mind's eye. Visualize a bell. And let us return to this time and space to be together again. Thank you, Michael. So first, a bit of an apology to those of you on Zoom. As the room has filled up here over the last few months, it's been easy for us to forget that you on Zoom are still there. And I've done this myself. And last time I was speaking, I asked a spur of the moment question, but I only asked it to the people here in the room. And I forgot about you folks on Zoom. So my apologies and an attempt to make amends. So if you're on Zoom, I invite you to have a dialogue with me during the sermon. Type questions or comments into the chat. I've got my phone here now, and I'm monitoring chat, and I will try to respond. Yes, it's a bit of an experiment, and boy, we've been doing a lot of improv today, but why not a little bit more? So I don't want you guys to be forgotten. So I should start with this sermon with you can escape, yes. the title of today's sermon, The Only Lasting Truth is Change. This sentence is one of the observations, that Lauren Olamina, a 15-year-old girl, writes in her notebook as she begins to craft a new religion, a religion that she calls Earth Seed. Lauren is the protagonist of Octavia Butler's seminal 1986 book, The Parable of the Sower. Butler, an African-American woman, is an outlier in the largely white male world of science fiction writing. In the years after her death in 2006, she has increasingly been seen as a major figure in that genre. She explored ecological issues early on, and her writing was largely dystopian before that really became a thing. And yet, many of her dark predictions, such as climate change, societal collapse, and a certain far-right presidential candidate whose slogan was "Help us make America great again," have been happening around us. Now, The Parable of the Sower is a hard read. Ask any of the folks here at LCUUF who read it as part of a discussion group we had here during the time of the pandemic. But it turns out that the parable of the sower, this earth seed religion is that Lauren began to create. This religion is a form of a religious thought called process theology. And I've talked about process theology before, and that was one of the sermons that led to that discussion group where we read the book. Now, process theology largely emerged from the Christian tradition, but it includes other ideas that may not be seen as traditionally Christian. So it appeals to a broader audience. In essence, process theology emphasizes change, becoming, evolving. Nothing is fixed in process theology, not even God. That in itself is heretical to many traditionalists who see God as perfect and unchanging. But in process theology, not only is everything changing, but everything is connected, changing together. That means we're all mixed in together, and that God is part of us and we're part of God. Another heretical idea. Now, I'm quite comfortable with the ideas of process theology. If I'm feeling kind of Christian some days, or maybe just more generally theistic, I slip into the warm blanket of process theology, which gives me comfort in a changing, churning world. But to make sense of change, I more often reach towards Buddhism, another of my theological homes. And just as I've made peace with the surface elements of Christianity, the hymns, the prayers, the smells and bells, I've also made peace with the superficial aspects of Buddhism also, the robes, the meditation cushions, the images of various Buddhist deities. And, you see a lot of that in this room here, which I've had a chance to meditate in New Mexico. For me, Buddhism is just like Christianity. There are deeper aspects to explore. So in Buddhist theology, there is this concept of anicca, or impermanence. It is the idea that everything is changing, that nothing is fixed or permanent. How we respond to the change, to the impermanence, defines our existence. If we cling to things, if we try to hold on to them, keep them constant, try to prevent change, then dukkha, or suffering, arises. In trying to keep things just so, we often have a miserable experience with life. So perhaps a creative response to change is to first acknowledge that change is around us and to go with it. Let go of control. Like the potted seedling in the reading, nature has the primary role. This is not to say that we just simply let change roll over us, but rather we respond, we flex with the change. As in the opening reading, we become like the willows, rooted, but bending with the winds of change. In Buddhism, in Taoism, there is a sense that change is constant, that it is the only lasting truth. In China, this, this sense of constant change is called Suran. Suran is this constant unfolding of things, the flow of time and existence. Suran is what the cosmos does. It is alive with creation and destruction. This is true of big, long-lived things like mountains and moons and stars, and also of short-lived things like mayflies and cherry blossoms, and even every breath we take. Now, the ancients understood that even our minds are not separate from Suran, that our thoughts constantly unfold too. We who meditate are reminded of this constantly as thoughts arise and disappear. We learn to step back, taking a detached view of the thoughts as they come and go. Chinese translator and writer David Hinton tells us, I quote, "The idea that there is no permanent self is a big part of Taoism and Chan Buddhism. The self is always moving. It isn't going to continue existing after you die. The minute you buy into the idea that some part of you will hang around, you have removed yourself from this world of trees and clouds and birds. If you're not in this world, this flowing world of change, then you're nowhere," end quote. So I kind of compare that kind of thinking to the Western desire to keep everything the same. We in the West have been taught to lust after immortality and permanence. I just read an article last week about this exclusive conference in the Swiss Alps for billionaires who want to extend their lives past 100, even 150 years, or yes, find a way to live forever. To attend, you had to be willing to put up $1 million US into life extension investments. That's Western culture at the extreme. And so living out this idea of Suran is not natural to us in our culture. It requires effort, practice, perhaps through finding time alone, perhaps through meditation. It requires letting go of a permanent, unchanging me. Let me make this point with an ancient Chinese poem by Wang Anxi of the 11th century. I quote, "Getting old isn't much fun, and it's worse in bed, sick. I draw water and arrange flowers, comforted by their scents adrift. Scents adrift, gone in a moment. And how much longer for me? Cut flowers in this long ago I. It's so easy forgetting each other." End quote. Now, wait a minute. How did we go from change to death? You may wisely ask, is Matt usually this dark, this morbid? So maybe we should instead look at another area of change in life, which is retirement. Now, since most of you are retired and I'm not, it's not my place to advise you on retirement. So let me bring up this TED Talk instead. We have a short video from a TEDx event in Surrey, British Columbia. Dr. Riley Moynes is the author of a book, The 4 Phases of Retirement, a Canadian bestseller.
You see, there are 4 distinct phases that most of us move through in retirement. And as you'll see, it's not always a smooth ride. In the next few minutes, you'll recognize which phase you're in if you're retired. And if you're not, you'll have a better idea of what to expect when that time comes. And best of all, you'll know that there is a phase 4, the most gratifying, satisfying of the 4 phases. And that's where you can squeeze all the juice out of retirement. Phase 1 is the vacation phase, and that's just what it's like. You wake up when you want, you do what you want all day, and the best part is that there is no set routine. For most people, phase 1 represents their view of an ideal retirement. Relaxing, fun in the sun, freedom, baby. And for most folks, phase 1 lasts for about a year or so. And then strangely, it begins to lose its luster. We begin to feel a bit bored. We actually miss our routine. Something in us seems to need one. And we ask ourselves, is that all there is to retirement? Now, when these thoughts and feelings start to bubble up, you have already moved into phase 2. Phase 2 is when we feel loss and we feel lost. Phase 2 is when we lose the big 5, significant losses, all associated with retirement. We lose that routine. We lose a sense of identity. We lose many of the relationships that we had established at work. We lose a sense of purpose. And for some people, there is a loss of power. Now, we don't see these things coming. We didn't see these losses coming. And because they happen all at once, it's like poof, gone. It's traumatic. Phase 2 is also when we come face to face with the 3 Ds: divorce, depression, and decline, both physical and mental. The result of all of this is that we can feel like we've been hit by a bus. You see, before we can appreciate and enjoy some of the positive aspects associated with phase 3 and 4, you are going to, in phase 2, feel fear, anxiety, and quite even depression. That's just the way it is. So buckle up, get ready. Fortunately, at some point, most of us say to ourselves, hey, I can't go on like this. I don't want to spend the rest of my life, perhaps 30 years, feeling like this. And when we do, we've turned a corner to phase 3. Phase 3 is a time of trial and error. In phase 3, we ask ourselves, how can I make my life meaningful again? How can I contribute? The answer often is to do things that you love to do and do really well. But phase 3 can also deliver some disappointment and failure. For example, I spent a couple of years serving on a condo board until I finally got tired of being yelled at. You see, one year, the board decided that we were going to plant daffodils rather than the traditional daisies. And we got yelled at. Go figure. I thought about law school, thinking perhaps of becoming a paralegal, and then I completed a program on dispute resolution. It all went nowhere. I love to write. So I created a program called Getting Started on Your Memoirs. That program has met with limited success. It's been a rocky road for me too, and I told you to buckle up. Now, I know all this can sound bad, but it's really important to keep trying and experimenting with different activities that'll make you want to get up in the morning again. Because if you don't, there's a real good chance of slipping back into phase 2, feeling like you've been hit by a bus and that is not a happy prospect. Not everyone breaks through to phase 4, but those who do are some of the happiest people I have ever met. Phase 4 is a time to reinvent and rewire. But phase 4 involves answering some tough questions too. Like, what's the purpose here? What's my mission? How can I squeeze all the juice out of retirement? You see, it's important that we find activities that are meaningful to us and that give us a sense of accomplishment. And my experience is that it almost always involves service to others. Maybe it's helping a charity that you care about. Maybe you'll be like the old coots. Yeah, these folks took a booth in the local farmers market and were prepared to give their advice based on their vast years of experience to anyone who came by. So I urge you to enjoy your vacation in phase 1. Be prepared for the losses in phase 2. Experiment and try as many different things as you can in phase 3 and squeeze all the juice out of retirement in phase 4.
So I heard this particular talk as a podcast and realized right away how true it was in general. I mean, I'm not sure that we follow those exact 4 phases in like a linear path in our retirement. Just as I'm not sure that we all work through the 6 stages of grief that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about when we deal with a loss, in that order. But I think there is some truth about this idea in general, because I've seen many people go through these sorts of phases after they've moved down here. I remember some people seemingly stuck in the vacation phase, or maybe where they didn't really seem happy, or maybe they had moved into the 2nd phase and were kind of hitting a depression situation. Obviously, some cases there was a lot of alcohol involved. But the part about getting involved and experimenting and finding your passion is important. Here at LCUUF, I've watched people slowly, thoughtfully choose to get involved, either here in the congregation or in other volunteer activities in Lakeside. I myself try not to push people to do stuff, even when we could really use their help on a particular task. Certainly we'll ask, but we don't plead. People need time to experiment, to sort things out. I'm also not disappointed when people are ready to move on from a role. Often they're ready to take up another role, perhaps a new one for them, perhaps something they never did before, as Susan Wagner talked about in her message last week. We do have many people changing roles here in this congregation this year. Some people are stepping back, perhaps to rest, perhaps to find something new to do in the larger Lakeside community. And I celebrate them and thank them for their service. Others are stepping into new roles, and I'm grateful for their willingness to try something new, to continue to devote energy to our fellowship as they find out what they truly love. I'm glad that people find meaning and joy in their passions and joy in serving others, as Moyne said in the video. So with people changing roles, levels of involvement, and the change of a new year coming in this fellowship, there's a lot of change happening. And if you're wanting to explore something new, this is my pitch. I invite you to consider our Sunday services workshop on Monday, December 5th, Monday week, from 2 to 4:30 right here. We'll be learning how to create more compelling Sunday services, where to find helpful resources, things like readings and music and slide images for slides and stuff like that, and where to get assistance. We'll cover how to look good on camera. Well, somebody will do that. I'm not sure I'm the person that can give you that advice. And how to sound good on a microphone, and among other little details that even if you have been, unless you've been in the professional world doing this kind of stuff, it's probably new to you, even if you had had some prior experience in other congregations, because we're all doing this Zoom stuff now. Importantly, there is no commitment. If you're new and you just want to come find out, if you're just curious about that, that's great. If you've done Sunday services before, come both to learn from others and also to share your experience and wisdom. So that's the end of my little pitch for that opportunity. So this is the last day of our formal pledge drive, our stewardship program. And I have to say, we didn't do as well as I or the organizers hoped. Currently, we are only at 697,850 pesos of our goal of 1 million pesos. And this is from 42 pledging individuals or couples. Certainly, we're not done. There are a few folks that we want to follow up with in the next week or two, just to see if they're can pledge this year. And we certainly know that this has been a year of change. The war in Ukraine, inflation, the uncertain post-pandemic environment. Are we done with this yet or not? All of that points to changes that can affect how generous people can be. So if you're in a slightly better situation and can augment your pledge, we very much appreciate that, as I'm sure will everyone whose situations don't allow them to be as generous today as they were in the past. Admittedly, we have many dreams in our budget, and some of those dreams will need to be diminished or deferred. Maybe we won't have quite as many guest musicians or visiting ministers, or we won't be able to afford paid tech help, which we had talked about. But the important things will continue, and we'll do all right because we love one another, and because we love this little community of like-hearted people that is this fellowship. So let me end with a poem. This is called "For Nothing is Fixed" by James Baldwin. For nothing is fixed. Forever, forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light falls, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. So let us not cease holding each other. Let us not break faith, for the only lasting truth is change. The flowers bursting forth with their ephemeral scents, the clouds rolling across the sky, the churning sea, ceaselessly grinding rock. It is in nature, in the world around us, that we open to that lasting truth, the constancy of change. May we, like the willows, remain rooted, grounded, calm, accepting, even with the winds of change swirling around us as they always will. May it be so. Blessed be.
Let us extinguish our chalice with these words, which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world. Now we'll have a musical mashup. Okay, he will explain.
Music is in a constant change. Music has evolved over centuries, millennium. And I'm going to play a mashup of two tunes that I'm sure you will know. One I did a couple of weeks ago, but the other is a direct descendant of the first one. And I think you will know the second one. And if you want to sing along, that's just fine. But the point is that music is constantly changing. And as I say, the second song has changed from what it was 250 years ago, but it's still the same with change.
So our worship is over, but our service begins. Go in peace and with a purpose. And